The name of this solemnity, our Lord Jesus Christ, the King of the universe, has such powerful significance in our lives. It starts with the word our, so it's a personalization that he is our King. He is Christ, the King of the universe, but our personal King as well in our Christian journey. 122 times we hear in the New Testament this kingdom or kingship mentioned throughout the New Testament. And 90 times Jesus himself speaks of his kingdom and kingship. We can even go back to the Annunciation of our Lord Jesus when Mary hears the words, "Your son will inherit the kingdom of David, and his kingdom will have no end." And then as Christ is born, the wise men are searching for the newborn king of the Jews. And today we hear in the gospel that Jesus himself says, "My kingdom is not of this world," as he's about to be persecuted and sacrifice his life for our eternal salvation. On the cross that will hang above him will be the words, "Jesus, King of the Jews." And when we proclaim the creed, what we believe as Catholics, we say, his kingdom will have no end. All that we are, my brothers and sisters, and all that we do as Christians should be around this relationship of Jesus Christ, our King of the universe. Today is a day that I give the state of the parish report, and at first glance it may be like an accountability to most people of our finances, which it indeed is that. But it's more than that. It's a snapshot into how we follow Christ in our own parish life and how it is that we live out that light in the world around us. If you didn't already receive the State of the Parish report, I would invite the ushers to come up the aisles with that report and be able to pass it out to anybody that hasn't received it yet. There are ushers back there able to help out with that. That would be great. If you haven't received the report, just raise your hand and they'll be coming through to help out so you can follow along. I want to begin on page 2 of the report. Page 2 gives us kind of a snapshot of how we invest particularly our financial resources. That is, then how do we invest in being Christians as we follow Christ faithfully? Now, if you're a visitor, you may be thinking, oh boy, I came here and I get the State of the Parish report. And at first glance, that may be kind of a drag for you. But at second glance, we might say how beautiful it is that we can also think about our own parishes, wherever you come from, and the life that you live in Christ there, as well as perhaps the opportunity to think about some of the things that are happening here that you might want to take back home. We always learn from others in the parish life. So you see the snapshot of the pie graph there, and it probably doesn't surprise most of you that when you have one of the most historic and beautiful churches in the city, that you always want to keep it maintained. And so that big chunk on buildings and grounds improvements is always to kind of keep this in the best shape so we can worship and glorify God in and through our worship here. That number will change dramatically next year because 70,000 of that has been for the rental of our parish hall over in Pan Am for the last several years, 10 years now or so. And so now, since we have the new parish hall dedicated this past weekend, that will be a big gain in not only in our budget, but just in how we can shift some of those resources to other areas of our parish life. Administration is the second one there. And then we get into like the real life. We need these things. We need buildings and grounds and administration to support all of the ministry and evangelization. But then we get into the real kind of heart of the mission. And that is social justice, 14%. That's sanctity of life and all the good work of defending life at all levels, as well as supporting families who need support as they've chosen life for their children. It also includes one of our largest ministries, the Emmaus Ministry, and outreach to the poor here in our local community. And a big chunk actually goes abroad to our sister parish in Mole St. Nicholas in northwest Haiti, where we support some of the poorest people in all the Western Hemisphere. The next chunk is 12% in faith formation for young adults and youth, and that includes our children's catechesis of the Good Shepherd, our campus ministry on the campus of Indiana University and Purdue University, Indianapolis, and our young adult outreach, which is a vibrant outreach here in the heart of the city for the young church. Worship and devotion makes up the next category. That's everything from weddings and the sacraments to music and all the church environment, including flowers and candles. And then clergy and substitute priests is the next category. That would be like my salary and all the subs that I have while I'm going. That this year will be a little bit larger because of my sabbatical and the time that you've blessed me to be able to take some renewal. Now, some people have asked about my travels. Are the parish paying for the travel? So, an example, I've been to Poland and to Montana, and I'm going to be going to Hawaii to visit the last couple saints on the American Saints tour that I've been on. And the answer to that is no. That's all personally paid for by me, but the parish is paying for my sub-priests while I'm gone. So that's a great gift to me to have the parish pay for the substitute priests while I'm traveling. But the rest of it, don't worry, you're not paying for 4 months of Father's grand vacation time. The next category is the Archdiocesan assessment, and that's what we give to the diocese for them to be able to do all of their outreach and programs. That's an assessment given by all parishes throughout the diocese. And then we have evangelization and faith formation for adults. That's primarily our missionary discipleship formation, which is vibrant and active in our parish. And then you see the final two, development and future growth, as well as fellowship. It looks like we ought to try to have a little bit more fun in this parish. Only 1% is fellowship. So we'll try to amp that up this coming year with a little bit more given to them. If you go to the next page, page 3, it has a snapshot of who we are. I think this is always interesting each year to take a look at. Who makes up the parish? Well, first off, there are 2,700 parishioners. You can see that the only time that's kind of dropped in the last 15 years or so since we started to capture this information is at the pandemic. And that's probably not surprising to anyone. During the pandemic, we had people move and less people join the parish because there just wasn't that activity in the church because it was closed. But right after the pandemic, we started to come out of it, we started to grow again, and now we're at the highest point we've been in 15 years. The number of families reflects that as well, 1,487 families. And then it's good to get into those demographics. Who are those people that make up their age groups? And the largest demographic we have is young adults. That can remain consistent for many years. It is 45%, or almost 1,200 of our parishioners are between the ages of 18 and 35. A second is a growth in our families and children, and that's now 19% of our parish. And then we go down to the ages 36 to 50 is just about 19% as well, and on down. So you can kind of see the age groups. We're a very young parish, and we're blessed to have so much youth and young family life here, as well as our campus ministry. It's also interesting to note that we have a growing demographic of people who live within a mile of the circle here in downtown. There was a day where hardly anybody lived downtown and came to this parish, but now we have 434 families that are actually in the downtown zip code, so that's grown dramatically. If you flip the page to page 4, now we get into all those individual areas of mission and worship that we invest in here at St. John's. The first is sacraments and worship and devotion. You can see we continue to remain strong in weddings, baptisms, and first communions. Many of those are adults that came through RCIA, or what's now known as OCIA, the Order of Christian Initiation for Adults. And so we're blessed to have brought in 26 adults last year into the church in full communion. Our funeral numbers are low. This is pretty typical. 3 to 5 is what I typically average a year since I've been here. And so we're kind of growing on the young side and not so many, thankfully, losses on the old side. 3 choirs, our traditional young adult choir and children's choir, continue to be active, and there'll be more about that at the end of the Mass, where we're amping back up now that our new music director is in place to be able to have those choirs in full and active participation in the liturgy. We also host adoration here in the church 35 hours a week, and we're getting ready to open our new adoration, what is not new anymore, but will be newly open to us, the St. John Paul II Chapel, which was opened before the pandemic. Closed then, remained closed because of construction, and now will be opened back up for adoration hours here in Advent. And finally, rosary making is a favorite of many people in our parish who meet once a month in a local pub to learn how to make rosaries and then be able to share those gifts with others. Social justice is a big chunk also of our ministry here at St. John's. We care for the poor, through the Emmaus ministry. Primarily in these days, it's going out to the poor to provide meals to them down on the river. But we also have kind of amped up our support of those who have found jobs and need help getting to work through bus passes, also buying tents for those who are along the river, and some other opportunities for paying utility bills where people are struggling but are working and need help even as they struggle in some of their poverty. We continue our Good Prison ministry led by Deacon Dave and so many others who volunteer in the parish. Sanctity of Life is such a great outreach. One of the newest projects this past year is the Gabriel. We are now a Gabriel parish, and we are supporting young families, especially who are struggling with newborns, to be able to help them have quality of life. A big chunk, too, goes to our sister parish in Mole, St. Nicholas in Haiti. I mentioned that earlier. I'm not going to go through all of these stats, but you can read them. In total, the parish supports our mission there at over $80,000 a year. And I think one of the great things is that support has given them hope. Haiti is in dire need. Probably you've seen on the news. Even now the airports are shut down because the cartel has taken over the entire country and all of its resources are under their control, such as transportation and water and food. And so they're struggling. Haiti has always struggled for decades and generations, but now it's in really just dire poverty and under kind of persecution. So as our support continues to send kids to school and to sponsor them in school, it really gives them hope and gives them a chance to at least learn as children. Another thing that's really struck me, and we've done some support more recently of the priests that are newly ordained, because this past year I found out through my work with Father William, who is the pastor of our sister parish, St. Nicholas, that the priests don't have an income there. They don't receive a salary like we do. They don't have their food provided like we do. They don't have insurance like we do. And so I'm so blessed because I want for nothing, and yet my brothers in Haiti kind of have to fend for themselves. And so we started with these new priests that we've supported in seminary. We've continued that support now at $1,200 a year, which is only $100 a month, but it really gives them a chance then to be able to live there in Haiti and have some resources to live off of each month. And so I'm very grateful that we can do that for them and give them some quality of life as they serve the people of God. We also started a new agriculture education program. Many of you know that I have an agriculture background, and so they were one of our students that we sponsored all the way through the university in an agriculture degree, wanted to go back to his hometown and be able to educate others in agriculture and help them to have a sustainable lifestyle by raising their own food, for example. And so we invested $5,000 in some facilities and a curriculum and education for the high school students so that they themselves can be more self-sufficient in their own futures as they graduate from high school. Remember, most kids never go to college there. They just don't have the opportunity, so they just kind of have to find a way to survive in Haiti, and through agriculture is one of the avenues. I want to go into evangelization now at the top of page 5. Most of our everything we do is evangelization, of course, but we also have a very intentional evangelization program called Missionary Disciple Formation. And so we relaunched some of that this past year with a Eucharistic revival. We were blessed to have small groups gathering last spring. 91 people gathered together in those small groups. And then we continued a fall series this fall as well. And we look forward to seeing the fruits of those labors as they've dived deeper into sharing the good news of Jesus Christ in our community. The Christkindle Village has been on pause for 5 years, first because of the pandemic and then because we were under construction here on the site. But we're relaunching here in December 13th and 14th. It's a bit of a soft launch. It won't be the whole village, but it'll be many parts of it. And today after the Mass, you'll hear a little bit more about that and volunteering in it. But we're very grateful that that's completely sponsored. We have that sponsored for this year, so all the tent that'll go up and all the expenses are already kind of paid for by the generosity of some local businesses and sponsors as we enter into the Christkindle Village. Faith formation for youth and young adults is next. This includes our children's Catechesis of the Good Shepherd, which continues to grow with the growing families in our parish. And we now offer 4 different times that children can meet for Catechesis of the Good Shepherd throughout the week. I'm always grateful to the catechists and all those who make that happen. It's a very rich and powerful catechesis for our children. Campus ministry, we continue to invest in that. We started there 15 years ago, and we continue to invest in our college students, our young church. We've been able to hire a part-time campus ministry, 15-hour campus minister for 15 hours a week. And the Focus team continues to do their good work on the campus for full-time missionaries by leading students in Bible studies and discipleship and so many other ways to be formed as Catholics. The Catholic Student Organization also is very active on the campus with weekly meetings and catechesis, retreats, and one of the favorites is a Mexico mission trip each year in Mexico City. And finally, in this category, young adult ministry continues to thrive. We're very intentional. We have 19 young adult leaders in our parish who help lead all the different committees and outreaches, from retreats to Before We Adore and Adoration to socials and communications for the young adult community. Faith formation for adults. Our beloved daughters and Estovir men, the men and women of our parish, have two different groups. They gather throughout the year for a series of formation and fellowship. And I'm particularly grateful to both those groups for their help in service, especially as we are renovating the rectory and office building, helping to move out and move back in and sort through things, and actually even renovation of the top floor. If you flip the next page to page 6, you'll see all the social media outreach that we do. Some interesting stats that you can look through, but we're very active in the social media world, from Facebook, where you can see in the last year we've had almost 35,000 hits, to Instagram, almost 16,000 views in the last 3 months. One of the things that is always good to see is when people open up their emails, because we do weekly emails, right, to the parish, and that stat is 57%. So well done, you guys. The average is about 25% for nonprofit organizations. That tells me that you're opening up emails and reading about parish life and what you can be involved in. And believe me, we know that, because if we miss something, you let us know, and that's really good. So we know how we can communicate better with you. And finally, in that category, we did the Eucharistic Revival podcast this year. If you haven't had a chance to see some of those, they're witnesses, testimonies of some of our parishioners whose lives were changed by the Holy Eucharist and by their faith in the Catholic Church. So check those out. They're online on our website. Buildings and grounds is a category that's very important, as I mentioned, as we continue to just maintain, but also to improve. So this new painting here on the North Transept, we just dedicated last weekend. The title is A Real Presence Unveiled, Present and Future Saints in Adoration. It was part of the Eucharistic Congress. It now will be a commemorative piece of the Congress and a sacred art piece for us as long as this church exists. And if you haven't had a chance to read about all the saints that are worshiping there, there's a booklet there at the base you can take with you along with a prayer card after Mass to learn more about the beauty, the goodness, and the truth that's given through that painting by our parishioner Michael McCarthy. We also were blessed last week to dedicate the new parish hall, Corpus Christi Hall. What a phenomenal gift to the parish that now we can gather here on site instead of renting across the street. And then a little update on the campaign, from the spires to the renovation of the parish office and rectory to the new parish hall. You all have raised almost $6 million in the last 5 years for all these projects of the parish. We started out with a goal of $3.5 million, with a stretch goal of $4 million, and then inflation hit us, and then we've just continued to go and continue to raise funds to be able to finish these projects. You notice the bottom line there is there's a loan from the Archdiocese to be paid, and those final numbers as they come in on the parish hall will help us to give a more pointed number to you in the next month or so on what that loan repayment will look like over the next 3 to 5 years. But all in all, we're in great shape, in a good place, given all these projects that have been accomplished over the last 5 years. And finally, I'd like to just touch on the National Eucharistic Congress that was held here in July, a big investment of both treasure and time and talent of this parish to be able to be the host parish for 60,000 pilgrims from across the world. We did the Paint the City initiative by some of our young adults to share what was happening right here locally with Indianapolis citizens. St. John's was a receiving site for the national pilgrimages that came across the country and landed right here in our church. We were the host site for the Perpetual Adoration for 4 days, as you know, And we were the launch site for the citywide Eucharistic procession, which is nothing short of heaven here on earth. And we created and hosted the Eucharistic Village for those pilgrims that came, where we provided food and drink and hospitality right here in our parking lot on Georgia Street. That was not meant to be a fundraiser. It was meant to serve, and yet God blessed us with making it a fundraiser. The profit from the food and drink alone was over $45,000 to the parish. And in addition to all the gifts that were given to us and the candles that were lit, all in all, there was over $82,000 that was given to the parish during that time. So that's such a wonderful gift that we didn't expect, but God blessed us with by all your good work and hosting of the pilgrims. Such grace has been showered upon us during those days, and yet today we have the largest number of OCIA candidates and catechumens in anybody's memory here at St. John's, with about 50 who are now in formation with us to hopefully become in full communion with the Catholic Church this Easter. And many people have been reconciled with God and His Church during these months and years. Each week I'm getting calls yet of people who want to come back to the church and participate in the life of the church. So it's just been such a glorious time for us. This is a snapshot of what we do to keep Christ our King in our lives. This is a snapshot of what our parish is doing to have the light of Christ shine in and through His grace being given to our lives, but also the lives of others that we encounter. I talked about opening emails, and maybe some of you opened your email this past week and saw the news that I will be reassigned this next year. This next July, I'll have a new assignment. It's a bit heavy-hearted for me to share that if you haven't already seen or heard about it. But I have been here 16 years. I've been so blessed. In June, I'll have been 16 years at St. John's. And that's just a very long, good time for any priest to be able to stay in one place. So I'm deeply grateful for that. And I want to thank you for it being such a great time. But I'm not saying goodbye today because I still have 7 months to journey with you. But I wanted to share just a minute of the process, if I could, because some of you have asked, why so early did we find out? Usually that announcement is made in the spring time. And that's a good question. There's a new process by the diocese, a new protocol that they're going through with all those who are retiring as priests or all those who are at the end of terms like myself and are being reassigned. There are 8 in total of those in our diocese. And the new protocol is for the diocese representatives of the personnel board, 2 priests, off that board of about 8, they come into each parish that's having a change and assess the parish and see where are they at, what's the state of the parish, what are some future needs of the parish, what's the culture of the parish, how can they best place somebody here in the next year. And the same for me, like to take a look at my own gifts and where can they best place me in a parish in my next assignment. So it's a very good process. We've already been through that last week. We had 2 representatives come. They met with parish council. They met with our ministry team. They met with our leadership on the campus of IU and Purdue University. And they did all the assessment. And now they'll take all that back to the team and to the bishop in January after Christmas to kind of start to look at how can we best place our priest in this new year. So that's why it was done so early, so they have a chance to do a great job of placements across the diocese. Honestly, it's been a process of trust and obedience for me, because I'd stay here the rest of my life if God said that I could. But we know that when I was ordained, that I promised obedience, and I've always promised trust to the Lord. And so I trust Him, and I trust that obedience through the bishop as well. And I also trust that He'll send a great priest that will come in and continue to help this community thrive and grow and be the bright light that you are in the heart of our city. And so again, I'm not going to say goodbye today because we got 7 more months together, and I look forward to that and the journey together as we continue to keep Christ our King of our lives and our parish as we seek to become saints together.